My family and food is my passion, and shopping for the very best fresh ingredients is what makes all the difference. Join me as we go on a journey of heartwarming food filled with mouth-watering dishes, bound to get those taste buds tingling. Welcome to my kitchen.
Sundays are an indulgent day, a time to spend with yourself and your family and friends, just eating delicious food. So a lazy Sunday evening supper for me is a light ricotta gnocchi with a homemade pesto, Vietnamese rice paper wraps, a salmon carpaccio with a fresh mango salsa, and a light vegetarian pasta. So let's get started with our gnocchi. Our ingredients are Parmesan, some fresh Italian parsley, ricotta of course, flour and egg, and that all binds together. And I'm finishing, we'll make some basil pesto later. Ricotta's a light cheese, not chunky, quite smooth, and it works beautifully in this because it's dry as well. And you need quite a lot of flour to bind it. 1 beaten egg. So let's just grate a whole lot of Parmesan into the dish. About a cup is good. And I've got this beautiful wedge of Parmesan. I'm going to chop some Italian parsley, and I like to leave the stems on because the stems give you lots of flavor as well. Perfect. And of course we need lots of salt and pepper because this is a bland cheese. It doesn't have a lot of flavor. Even though we've added the Parmesan, it's still going to need quite a lot of seasoning. It looks perfect. It's quite dry. It's nice and thick. Let's give it a taste. And I think it's perfect. So let's put this pot on. I need to add a lot of salt in the water also to give it flavor, so it's not a bland tasting water. Just divide the mixture in half so that you're not doing it all in one lot. And pretty much just roll it into a shape like that. You don't want them too small or too big. They've got eggs, so they're going to puff when they go into the water. Just want to make sure that it's nice and well stuck together. So you want to cut them about that size because they're going to get bigger. And don't overcrowd the pot, just a few. And you want to let them come to the top. My family are a little bit wheat intolerant, so I often use spelt flour, which is low gluten, to substitute for cake flour. Here I have used cake flour, but I would make it with spelt. The only problem, spelt, you need to add just a little bit more, so like an extra 2 tablespoons to the recipe, because it doesn't hold, obviously, from the low gluten, quite the same as regular flour. But they love it. It's something that everybody will then be able to eat. So I'm turning down the heat a little bit. A beautiful, fruity olive oil, just on the bottom of the platter. These are perfect. Drain off the excess water. And you can see how light and fluffy and fresh they are. I've grated some Parmesan for my take on a pesto. So we've got basil, Parmesan, a bit of garlic, and some olive oil. And this version is nut-free. It's quite nice. It's just a little bit different. You need a lot of basil. And the big thing is to chop the basil first. A lot of Parmesan to bring it all together. A little bit of garlic. Olive oil. So you need quite a lot of olive oil. This is a really nice way to preserve basil as well, because often you buy a big packet of basil, you don't know what to do with it when you've finished using it, and basil is one of the herbs that can't be dried. So this way you can process it and it actually freezes beautifully. Now we need some salt and a little bit of pepper. You've got to get that beautiful texture that you need. Now this way, the basil, even when it comes out of the freezer, will still be a beautiful green. Whereas if I freeze basil on its own, it goes black immediately because it absorbs the water in the freezer. It's delicious, it's perfect, and it's exactly what I need for my gnocchi. Right, a little drizzle, just to give me that gorgeous color. And pesto is quite strong, so you never want to overdo it. Rather serve some more on the side so that everybody can help themselves and add as much as they'd like. There we go. Our ricotta gnocchi is the perfect comfort food for a lazy Sunday. Later on, we'll be making rice paper wraps, a zesty salmon carpaccio with mango salsa, and delicious vegetarian pasta. And don't forget, you can get all the recipes on the Home Channel website. The theme of the show today is lazy Sunday dinners, and we've already made some ricotta gnocchi with a homemade pesto. Now we'll be making Vietnamese rice paper wraps, which are stylish, simple and healthy, and perfect for a Sunday. The ingredients are rice paper wraps, and for the sauce a little bit of carrot, chili, vinegar and water. We'll add some sugar later. And in the wraps we're putting cucumbers, spring onion, avo, lettuce, carrot and nuts, and a little bit of mint, very fresh. Let's start with our sauce. So we've got some vinegar, some water, just so it's not too strong, a little bit of carrot that I've chopped and very finely, and it's just really for color more than anything else. We need about 1/4 cup of sugar, and this is a homemade sweet chili sauce. It's nicer than the bought kind, and it really is beautiful to keep for any other dish. So we're just chopping a little bit of red chili quite finely to add to give it a bit of a kick. And it's going to give me a beautiful color in my sauce. It's just a hint, so as to give it a little bit of flavor and a bit of a kick. So low stove just to dissolve the sugar. The most important thing is to soften the wraps. So you need some warm water. It can't be too cold and it can't be too hot. If it's too hot, they break immediately, and if it's too cold, they don't soften enough. So you've got to get the right balance between hot and cold. So I take boiling water first, then we'll add some cold water, a finger test, that's fine. And I've got some cucumbers. We don't want the seeds, we just want the edges, and we don't need a lot. And cut it very thin. So I'm doing spring onion, cutting it into little thin strips. So just a little bit. So the avo is also in thin little strips. Right. So I've got everything out the way. We need a clear counter to work on. And we need a towel because as soon as the wraps come out of the water, they need to be put on the towel to drain off the excess water. Now, when exposed to the air, they tend to curl. So you want to take one at a time out of the packet. And after you've used them, you should put them in a Ziploc packet to keep them sealed. And these are available at most Chinese shops. Some supermarkets do sell them. This is what they look like. It's a hard rice paper wrap. So we drop it into the water and let it just soak. It'll kind of fall in. And it doesn't matter if that middle is not quite softened, but it needs a good minute in the water. So you can't fry these. They're not like normal spring rolls. The normal spring roll wrappers are much firmer, and those come in the freezer section. This will always be on a shelf in the supermarket, never in the fridge or freezer. This side's a little bit hard still. You can actually see it's not bending, but this side has softened already, so I'm just turning it around. Now the middle is a little bit tough, but it doesn't matter because once I roll it up, it'll soften and it'll be perfect. So we're putting it on the cloth, lay it out flat, and your next one goes in. Let it just drop. Okay, these are done. It doesn't matter if they're a little bit torn, because we'll fold that part inside. So you can see they've dried out quite a lot on the cloth, and they're quite easy to handle. They seal themselves, so they don't need any egg to seal them. So the first thing you start with is your lettuce. That's the base. I don't want any of the spine. I need it to be really soft. And the secret here is not to overcrowd the wrap. The more you put inside, the harder it is to roll. And then we're laying the vegetables all in the same direction. Some spring onion. Just a few sprigs here. Some avocado. Some nuts. And these are all Vietnamese flavors. Some mint leaves. And you could shred these or chop them if you'd like, but I like to just put them in loose, like that. So now we're ready to roll. We want to fold in the sides first. So I've got to roll the way that the vegetable lies. So we fold in the sides. And you can see that they actually stick together quite easily. Pick up this side now and roll it quite tightly, tucking it as you roll, like that. And it seals itself. This is one of my favorite foods. I could make these all day. And once you know how, it's so simple. But the trick is knowing not to overfill it. Because if you overfill it, they just burst and break quite easily. Fold in. So it's actually quite economical because you can get a lot of wrappers made with very few ingredients. These are ready to go. My sauce is ready. Let's put them on a beautiful plate. Sunday is shaping up pretty well, even if I say so myself. Our ricotta gnocchi with homemade basil pesto is ready. Rice paper wraps are done. And when we come back, we'll be making a salmon carpaccio with a fruity mango salsa and also a light variation on a vegetarian pasta. And if you like the recipes on today's show, you can get them on the Home Channel website. Welcome back to our Sunday kitchen. We're making a delicious, lazy Sunday supper. We've already made some ricotta gnocchi with homemade basil pesto, some rice paper wraps, and now we're going to be making my version of a vegetarian pasta. And later, a salmon carpaccio with a fruity mango salsa. So let's get started with the pasta. Our ingredients are fettuccine, a little bit of cream, some parmesan, red onion, fresh basil. I've got ricotta, feta, some nice rosa tomatoes, mushrooms, and some zucchini. So I'm going to heat a pan with a little bit of oil. And the red onion's a little bit more fruity, sweeter. So just slice it. I'm going to season it with a little bit of salt. It brings out the flavor. And the mushrooms, I want them quite chunky. So I'm going to just cut them in half. They're normal white mushrooms. Our baby marrows, we're going to cut into thin slices. And that's going to give you a really nice color in this dish. On a Sunday, what I normally do is clear out my fridge. So I check what I've got in the vegetable drawer, get ready for the next day. And if I've got lots of vegetables, I make a stir fry or something like this, a nice vegetarian pasta with whatever there is. And then the tomatoes, we're going to slice in half so that I just soften them in the pan. Right, let's shake the pot. The onion's softening beautifully. And let's get the mushrooms into the pot now. Plus the tomatoes. Black pepper. A good shake. That way you're not messing up the vegetables by stirring them. That's what I love about food, is that you can just put things together without a recipe by adding flavor and taste with whatever you have. So even the salt doesn't need to be measured. Really do it from the heart with a lot of love. It's a pasta. It doesn't matter. As long as it tastes good, I'm sure everybody will eat it. This needs a few more minutes, so we'll just keep our eye on it. And while we're waiting, we'll bring a pot of water to a boil. I'm going to add a lot of salt to the water to give it nice flavor. You want to boil the water first before you add the salt. It comes to a boil quicker without salt in it. Only add the salt once it's boiled. And always use a big pot when you're boiling pasta. It likes to move around. So the question is, should you add oil or not? I use a little drop of olive oil in the pot. I like it. It gives a flavor to the water as well. This is cooking beautifully. The water's boiling. Let's add some salt, just ordinary iodinated salt. I'm going to put a little bit of oil in the water. Pasta goes in. And remember to stir all the time while the pasta's cooking. You don't want it to stick together. So we give it a nice stir. It must come back to a boil. So I'll put the lid on. Just don't want it to overflow. And my mushrooms and tomatoes are beautiful. They've softened a little bit. I don't want to let all the juices go away. So now we're going to add our baby marrows. A little bit of salt now again. Give it a good shake. A quick stir. Water's boiling. Let's check our pasta. I'm sure it's almost done. My test is whether it's got a little bite to it. Here's another minute. So we'll put the lid back on gently. Right, my vegetables are almost done. I'm going to add some cream to the pan, and not a lot. Just enough to give me a nice sauce. About a half a cup. Give it a good stir. Just let it come to a boil. I need some pepper in here. That's what's going to give me a little bit of flavor as well. Right, I'm turning the stove off because that's actually done. And now we're going to add our cheese. I've got some beautiful feta here in little cubes. I don't want to break it up too much because the cheese is going to melt with the heat of the sauce. So we'll just put it on top. We'll put our ricotta on top as well and not stir it in. And we'll keep the parmesan for a bit later. Now that pasta must be done. Good shake. Pour it over your sauce. So on a low heat, and we're just gently starting to mix that together. We'll put a little bit of basil. And there you have it, my vegetarian pasta. The ingredients for salmon carpaccio are naturally fresh salmon, or you could use smoked salmon. We've got some avo and mango for our salsa, which is going on top. And our marinade is sweet chili sauce, some sesame seeds, white and black for decoration, a little bit of mustard, some wasabi powder, lime juice, caster sugar, some olive oil, soya sauce and apple cider vinegar. They'll make up a beautiful marinade to drizzle over the salmon. So we want to slice the salmon quite thinly, and I've got a very nice trick for you for that. I've wrapped the salmon in plastic wrap. It makes it much easier to slice and it keeps the board clean, but you need a really, really sharp knife. So you want to slice right through the plastic, and that way it doesn't break the salmon when you slice it. So it doesn't matter that you've got a few little pieces of plastic on the salmon. Cut right through. Place it on the platter and just fan it out. So for the marinade, I need about 1/4 cup of a light olive oil. Some apple cider vinegar, about 3 tablespoons. About 1 tablespoon of soya sauce. Then I've got some Dijon mustard. A little bit of wasabi powder gives you a nice kick. Some sweet chili sauce. A little bit of caster sugar. About 1 teaspoon or 2. Some lime juice. And a bit of salt and pepper. So we just want to whisk that up. And you never want to put this on too soon, because it's going to start cooking that salmon from the acidity of the vinegar and the lime juice in the marinade. So we'll drizzle it on just before we serve it. So for the salsa, I've got some avocado. So your mango, cut into little strips first, and then a small dice. A little bit of chopped parsley. You've got beautiful colors going onto your salmon. We want a little bit of that marinade on the salsa. Just to coat it, I'm going to drizzle the marinade just a little down the center. Spoon over your salsa. And we finish off with some toasted white and black sesame seeds. Just a touch for color, and there you go, your salmon carpaccio with mango salsa, ready to accompany all our other dishes. After a long, hard week, everyone deserves a day where they can kick back, chill, and eat amazing food. I hope our lazy Sunday suppers has inspired you. We've made a beautiful ricotta gnocchi with pesto, a vegetarian pasta, some rice paper wraps with some sweet chili sauce, and a salmon carpaccio with a mango salsa. Join us next week for our casual party with friends, where I'll be making a cranberry and pomegranate salad, a grilled watermelon and feta salad, seared salmon with soba noodles, and finishing off with a tropical fruit salad. Don't miss this show. Stay inspired and keep it simple. I'll see you again next week.